This is Dr. Nirupama Bhatt from the Department of Computer Science and Engineering. Today we will see, as a part of the information security course, we will see one of the important encryption standard, that is data encryption standard. So this data encryption standard algorithm is mainly used in the symmetric ciphers. In symmetric ciphers we use only one key in both the encryption as well as in the decryption. And data encryption standard, it is the algorithm which acts as a standard to the symmetric ciphers. So let us see what are the main important topics which we are going to see today. Today we will be seeing about the history of this encryption standard, how this encryption standard has come, and we will see how we are doing the encryption process. Similarly, in this we generate the key, we will see the key generation process, again the decryption process, and how strong this particular DES algorithm is, and also what are the various attacks that could be performed on this DES and why another standard has come into existence. So coming to the history of DES, it was developed by IBM and initially it was called as Lucifer, and it is a block cipher where we use a block of 64 bits and a key of 128 bits. But they don't want algorithm with 128 bit key, so they have asked to refine this particular algorithm, and it was refined to a 56 bit key to fit on the chip. And finally this particular algorithm in 1977, it was made as a standard by the National Security Agency. So let us see this block cipher, how it works. Here you have an input block of 64 bits. That means if the size of the message is bigger than the 64 bits, we can divide that into blocks of 64 bits, and you use a key of 64 bits. Here we say the key size as 64, but actually we will be using only the 56 bits as the key, and when this key and input is sent into this particular DES algorithm, we get the output, and the size of the output is also 64 bits. So let us see how this particular block cipher works. Initially we take a 64 bit plain text and we perform the initial permutation. Here it works on Claude Shannon's permutation substitution network or substitution permutation network. So initially we take a 64 bit plain text and we send into a permutation box which we call it as initial permutation. In this initial permutations, the bits are shuffled. We will see each and everything in the coming topics. So this after initial permutation, we have to go with this rounds. Here at the same time we take a 64 bit key, but we use only 56 bits of the 64 bit key, and we again that 64 bit key is also done a permutation. Okay. So here this DES actually it uses 16 rounds. It has 16 rounds. So the output of this initial permutation is sent into round 1, and actually in every round there should be some message and a key as input, and it gives the output. So here the output of the initial permutation, and we are designing a subkey here. That means because there are 16 rounds here, you need 16 subkeys. So we generate 16 subkeys, one for each round. And suppose K1 is the key that is generated here. So the input and the key together is sent into this particular round, and some process is going to take place in this particular round, and the output again that is sent into another round. Like this we perform 16 rounds. After the last round we are performing a swap operation. We will see all these operations one after the other, and then we perform inverse initial permutation. This inverse initial, after performing the inverse initial permutation, the output is the ciphertext. I will come again. You take a 64-bit plain text, perform initial permutation. Initial permutation is nothing but permuting the values of the various bits that is present in this particular message. So here you are performing some sort of permutation on the message, and that data is sent into round function, and similarly you are taking a key, though it is told as 64-bit, you use only 56 bits, and that you are sending it into permutation choice. Again here the bits are permuted, and that output, it is sent to a left circular shift. The left circular shift, from the left circular shift the output is again sent into a permuted choice 2, and that output you are calling it as key. The same process is taking place here, and you are generating different keys for different rounds. And after the 16th round, here we are using 16 rounds. So by the end of each round you will be performing both permutation and also substitution. The substitution is performed in the round. In each round you perform permutation as well as substitution. We will see about the rounds next. And after the last round you are going to swap the data, and that you call it as the ciphertext. Ciphertext is nothing but a text that you get after performing some algorithm, and which is some sort of scrambled data. So it does not have any meaning as the plain text. So why we do all this process is to provide a service called as confidentiality. So this confidentiality service we provide for only those persons who will be knowing the keys. So the sender will be knowing the key, and the same key must be sent to the receiver in a secured manner, and that key has to be used both by the sender and the receiver. Sender uses that key for encryption and receiver uses that key for decryption. So let us, whatever I have told you now, let us see that. So you have a 64-bit plain text and you have a 64-bit key in which you use only 56 bits, and you are performing the initial permutation. After this initial permutation, you come up with a round. So how many rounds do we have? We have 16 rounds actually, and you create a subkey for each round, and you the output of this round will be sent as the input of the next round. So this particular rounds will be continued for 16 times, and now we have the swap function where you will be swapping. Here you have 64 bits, so you will be swapping 32 bits each, and that will be your output. So after performing inverse initial permutation, then you get the output which you call it as 64-bit ciphertext. So what is that we are doing? First we are performing initial permutation. Suppose X is the plain text. We are performing initial permutation on the plain text, and using that and the key, we are sending this data into the round function. And for the values of I from 1 to 16, we perform the various rounds in which different subkeys are generated, and the output of this 16 rounds is sent to a, is again swapping is performed, and finally we are sending that data into inverse of the initial permutation, and you get the ciphertext. So here you have the swap, and after swapping the whole thing, you will be sending it to inverse initial permutation, and that will be the output, which we call it as the ciphertext. So let us see what this initial permutation and how these rounds work, and how this particular key is generated, and other things. So here we have studied about two terms, initial permutation and inverse initial permutations. Suppose we have different bits like 0, 1, 1, 0, 1, 0, 0, 0, 1, something like that. You have 64 bits as input. So now you are putting the 58th bit here, next 50th bit, next 42nd bit, like that. In this you are putting that, that means you are just relocating the bits. You are relocating the bits and you are arranging that. That is called as initial permutation, that you perform in this initial permutation process. So if you observe, you can see the first 4 rows, it all has the bits that is in the even locations, and the next 4 rows, it has all the bits that is in the odd locations, like 1, 9, 17, 25, like that. So that means 3, 3, 6, 7, 8. 8 into 4, that is 32 bits and 32 bits. That means you are grouping 132 bits and another 32 bits. This 32 bits, it will be sent as the input to the round function. Similarly, after performing the swap operation, you will be again performing the inverse initial permutation. Actually, what we have done, we have put the first bit in the 40th location here when we are performing the initial permutation. In the reverse initial permutation, what we are doing, again we are putting the 40th bit in the first bit location. Like that, here in the 8th location you have put the second bit when we are performing initial permutation. Here again from the 8th location we are putting that bit back into the second location. So it is a inverse process. The one important thing which we have to note or remember is, here the process is invertible. We have to use a invertible process. So inverse initial permutation is inverse to this initial permutation. Yes, this is a very important thing. Yeah. So this particular, we have seen the input to this particular round function, that is the after performing the initial permutation you have the 64 bits. Here we are using the Feazell cipher structure. What is this Feazell cipher structure? You divide the data into 2 parts, that is 32 bits and 32 bits. You call the first 32 bits as left hand side data and the next 32 bits as the right hand side data. And what we are doing here, at the end of this round, we send this right hand side data directly to the left hand side data of the next round. We send the right hand side data directly to the left hand side data of the next round, and to this left hand side data you are performing some operation here. with the output of this particular round, and that we are sending it as the right hand side data of the next round. So, the right hand side data is directly sent to the left hand side data of the next round, and the left hand side data is XORed with the outcome of this particular round function, we can say, and that outcome is XORed with the 32 bits of the left hand side data, and that we are sending it as right hand side data. That means here we are performing some sort of substitution. So, let us see what is happening in this particular round. So, here we have this 32 bits. This 32 bits is sent through a table which you call it as expansion table, and when it goes through this expansion table, the 32 bits is converted to 48 bits. We will see how it is converted, and this 48 bits, it is XORed with the sub key which you have generated. For each round we have to generate a sub key. We will see the key generation afterwards. Let us suppose you have generated the key and the size of the key is 48 bits. Previously I have told you have 56 bits, and from the 56 bits you have generated a 48 bit key, and the output of the expansion box is XORed with the sub key that is generated, and you get the 48 bits. That is the output of the XOR function, and this 48 bits we are sending it through a substitution box. I have told you that here we are using the substitution permutation network. So, here you are sending it through the substitution box. So, in this substitution box, again this 48 bits they are reduced to 32 bits, and again we perform permutation on this 32 bits, and that will be XORed with the left hand side data, and the outcome of this XOR function is sent to the right hand side data of the next round. Okay. So, how this particular key is generated we will see afterwards. So, here I have talked about this expansion and permutation and substitution. So, we have to see about these three things. We have seen our initial permutation. Okay. So, now let us see what is this expansion. You just remember the input to the expansion box is 32 bits and the output from the expansion box is 48 bits. Similarly, in the permutation box P, you are just permuting the values. That means input is also 32 bits and output is also 32 bits. So, let us see how it looks. So, here we have this, you have this expansion box. So, actually the expansion box you have only 32 bits. So, you are writing those 32 bits as 4 bits in each row. You are writing those 32 bits as 4 bits in each row, and you are converting this 32 bits into 32 bits into 48 bits. So, how? Here what we are doing is, after 4 we are including this particular 5th bit again here. Similarly, after 8th bit we are including this 9th bit here. Here some mistake, this is 9th bit. Okay, and here again 13, 14, this is 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. So, like that. That means you are adding 1 bit as a predecessor and 1 bit as the successor for every 4 bits. So, this 4 bits you have the 32nd bit, that is the last bit, it has become predecessor here. Again for 5, 4 has become predecessor, for 9, 8 has become predecessor, for 13, 12 has become predecessor, like that. That means now this 32 bits and this 8 bits and the other 8 bits, totally 48 bits. So this 48 bits we are sending it, the output of these 48 bits you are XORing it with the sub key that is generated, and that output you are sending it through the substitution box, and again the output of the substitution box is 32 bits that we are sending it into a permutation block. So this is the permutation block. So it is nothing but you are just relocating the values. 1 you have put here, 2 you have put here, and the other things 3, 4 like that we have put here. Okay, so you are permuting this. And yes, we are talking about the next topic is substitution box. So here in every round we will be using 8 substitution boxes. We will be using 8 substitution boxes. You have 48 bits and you are converting that into 32 bits. How you are going to convert that into 32 bits? So when you have this 48 bits, you take every 6 bits as input to the substitution box. The input to the substitution box is 6 bits and the output of the substitution box is 4 bits. That means the first 6 bits you are sending it into S1, the next 6 bits you are sending it into S2, S3, S4 and so on. So S5, S6, S7 and S8. So here you are sending 6 bits and the output is 4 bits. So let us see how actually this particular conversion takes. Suppose you are taking the value 1 0 0 1 1 0. Suppose these are the 6 bits which you are taking. So this is input to the substitution box. So here actually every substitution box, it has 4 rows and 16 columns. 4 rows and 16 columns. So you take the first bit and the last bit together and it represents the row number, and the middle 4 bits it represents the column number. So what is 0 1? What is the binary value of 0 1? 0 1 means it is 1. So you have to consider the first row. And what is 1 0 0 1? 1 0 0 1 is 8 plus 1. It is 9. So you take the 9th column. 0 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9. So the intersection of this and this, that is 6. So the output of this substitution box is nothing but the binary value of equivalent value of 6. That is 6 is nothing but 4 plus 2. So this is the output. Similarly, the next 6 elements, you again take from the next 6 bits, the first and the last bit will be taken as the row number, and the remaining 4 bits you are taking it as the column number, and you are finding the intersection. You consider this as 0 1 2 3 and 0 1 2 3 4 5 6 like that. It continues to 15. So depending upon this and this values, you can find out what is the output. So like that, from each S box you get 4 values or 4 bits as output. 4 into 8, you have the 32 bits. So this is how the S box works. Here we have picturized this. Yeah, this is the 32 bits. You are sending it into an expansion box. You are getting 48 bits, and that 48 bits you are XORing it with the sub key, and you are again getting the 48 bits, and each 6 bits you are sending it into an S box, and you are getting 4 bits as output of this S box. So 4 into 8, you have 32 bits here, and that you are sending it through the permutation box, and that will actually be the output of this round, and it will be XORed with the left hand side data and sent as the right hand side data of the next round. So, till now we have seen the encryption process in each round, and the thing which is left is the key generation, how we have to generate the key. So, I have told you that the output of this permuted choice 1, it is 56 bits. So, this 56 bits we are dividing that into two parts. So, 28 bits and 28 bits. On this 28 bits, depending upon the round number, you are sending it into a left circular shift box. So, this 28 bits is sent into a left circular shift box. Similarly, this 28 bit is also sent into a left circular shift box. And depending upon the round number, it will be shifting 1 or 2 bits. In round number 1, 2 and 9, it will shift 1 bit, and in the remaining 13 rounds, it will shift 2 bits to the left. So, the output of this left circular shift is sent into a permutation box, which you call it as permuted choice 2. And here the output of this permuted choice, that is actually the input to this permuted choice is 56 bits and the output of this permuted choice is 48 bits. And that 48 bits we call it as the sub key. That 48 bits we call it as the sub key. And again this data, again it goes into the next round. Again, depending upon the round number, it performs the left shift there. Because it is round number 2, again we perform 1 bit left shift, and that is again sent into the permuted choice 2 box, and that output again it is considered as sub key for that particular round. Like that, for 16 rounds we generate 16 sub keys. And finally, how the permuted choice 1 and 2 look. Okay, yes, the round 1, 2 and 9, it has 1 bit left shift is performed, and in the remaining 13 rounds we perform 2 bits left shift. So, this is where you have to send. So, in permuted choice 2, actually it will just remove some bits. That is why you are converting the 56 bits into 48 bits, and that particular output you are again swapping it, and finally you are sending it through initial permutation, and that you are calling it as ciphertext. Now, let us see how the decryption looks. So, here in this decryption, again it is completely reverse to this particular encryption function. So, here the ciphertext you are taking input to the 16th round, and that again you are calling it as LD0 and RD0, and the same thing you are applying K16, that is the last subkey that is generated, and you are sending this RD0 and K16 into this round function, and the output of that is XORed. Actually it is XORed. It is XORed, and again that is you are performing the swapping here, the left hand side with the right hand side and right hand side with the left hand side. Actually it is found that whatever is input in the encryption process here, and whatever it is output in the encryption process, the same data is again input into this particular function, and the same data, this data itself you get out of this particular function. So, but the only thing is the key you have to give it in the reverse order, because this is the key which we have used in the last round here in the encryption process. That key you have to use in the first round of the decryption process. So, similarly you perform this, and you get the output. So, it reverse the order of the key here, the same algorithm as encryption you perform, and IP it is reversed to the IP inverse. So, I think you have understood this particular DES algorithm. This is nothing but data encryption standard algorithm, And I'll just revise once again. You take a 64-bit plain text and it is told as 64-bit key, but you can call it as only 56-bit key because we use only 56 bits of that. Other 8 bits, they are taken as parity bits. So we can say that the key to the DES function is 56 bits. So that you are sending it through the initial permutation, and then we are sending the output of the initial permutation into 16 different rounds, and the output of the last round is again swapped and sent into the inverse initial permutation, and that we can call it as the ciphertext. And to each round we are generating the subkey, and this subkey also we use the 56 bit, and in every round we generate a 48 bit subkey, and we use 48 subkeys, different subkeys in all the 16 rounds. Now let us see what is the strength of this particular DES algorithm. So actually, to perform brute force attack, actually it has 56 bit keys. So it is 2 power 56, something like 2 power 56 different keys can be generated here. Okay, but actually initially they have used a 128 bit key, but they were told to reduce it to the 56 bit key. So they were just telling that if it was 128 bits, then it would be very strong algorithm. And these S boxes also, it is one of the strength of this particular algorithm. Yeah. So when you use 56 bits, it is 2 power 56, that is 7.2 into 10 to the power of 16 values. And to perform brute force attack, what is this brute force attack? Applying each and every combination of key to the algorithm and trying to find out the key. So again, this is a very tedious process, because checking applying the algorithm with each and every key is a tedious process. But yeah, if a machine performs 1 DES encryption per microsecond, but still it would take some thousands of years. So, and one more thing is very important here, that is the avalanche effect. Avalanche effect, a small change in either the plain text or the key will have a large change in the output. So here you can see, suppose you have taken a plain text with only 1 bit difference. In the 0th round, the plain text which you have taken is only 1 bit difference, but by the 16th round 34 bits have changed. So that means more than half of the bits has changed with the one small change in the input. Similarly, a small change in the key also differs 35 bits in the key. So this avalanche effect is also a strength of this particular DES function or algorithm rather. But we have attacks on this particular DES also. So it is proved insecure by brute force attack. In the previous slide itself, I was telling you that it will take around thousands of years to have this brute force attack. But what happened? They started using the internet. So in the internet, they started dividing few keys among each people, and they were trying to run all the keys, and they tried to solve, and they solved it in, or they crypt analyzed or broke it in few months. And also one machine was prepared, that is DES cracker, and it cracked that particular DES in only 3 days, but it is very expensive. And when these two processes together, when they have done, it took only 22 hours for them to crypt analyze the key or the code. The other type of attack is the timing attack. The timing attack means they try to analyze the timing of the running of this encryption algorithm as well as the decryption algorithm with the different plain text values, and they try to analyze the key using this particular algorithm. That means they will just check how much time it takes to encrypt that particular plain text value with one particular key. Similarly, just changing the plain text they will try to analyze, and that means using some sort of hardware they try to analyze the timing attack. And Next is the cryptanalytic attack. Cryptanalytic attack, that means to identify the key or the plain text without the knowledge of key. From the cipher text to identify the plain text or the key without the knowledge of the key, we call it as the cryptanalytic attack. There were again two types of cryptanalytic attacks. We call them as linear cryptanalysis and differential cryptanalysis. So attacks actual implementation of the cipher, and it uses the bits, subkey bits that were generated, and using small changes in the subkey bits, they are trying to identify the timing, variation of the timing depending upon the small changes in the inputs. That is the timing attack. And cryptanalytic attack, actually you try to break the statistics of this particular keys, usage of the keys and the plain text. So these utilize some deep structure of the cipher by gathering information about various encryptions. Here we use chosen plain text. You choose the plain text, and using that plain text you try to perform the attacks, and you try to analyze each and every round, and you try to identify the keys here. And is necessary then exhaustive search for the rest. That means if you could get few bits of the keys, you can perform for exhaustive search of the remaining bits. Here you use the chosen plain text. That means you choose the plain text and you have the cipher text of that particular plain text. And after using that in cryptanalysis, again you take another set of plain text that is also chosen by you, and you use that plain text. Like that we take the chosen plain text and we use that in this differential cryptanalysis. So here what we are doing is, here a particular difference in the plain text pairs on the difference in resulting cipher text pairs. That means you take two different plain text with a small difference, and similarly you try to extract what is the difference you are getting in the cipher text in each round, and you find out the probability of getting that particular value in various rounds. So the attacker chooses certain plain text pairs with a particular XOR difference, and the plain text differences are encrypting using the same key. You use the same key and you try to find the XOR differences of the cipher text, and you try to identify the code which has high probability, and you analyze that particular data in the successive rounds. And you need to perform 2 power 47 different chosen plain texts are used to perform this differential cryptanalysis. The next one is the linear cryptanalysis. Here we use some bits of the plain text and they are XORed with the corresponding bits in the cipher text, and then again they are XORed, and you XOR again that with the key also. The output may be XORed of some of the bits in the key, and like that you try to apply some sort of trial and error and you try to extract the key values. And this particular thing, it used known plain text of order 2 power 43. So because this particular DES, it was broken, it was cryptanalyzed, again the NIST and National Security Agency, they wanted to go for another cipher, and that is they want to make the cipher more complex. So they have gone for another one, that is advanced encryption standards, as well as they have started using this DES only multiple times, like double DES and triple DES, that we will see in the next classes. Thank you.